value, and then when we talk funding, we, behave otherwise. So I think of all the parties, we've been the most consistent insofar as the values are concerned and how we are behaving.
Who are your blessers?
Our blessers are South Africans, people who are born of this country and are passionate about.
Who gives you money?
Yeah, Tlamo, let me explain to you. Doesn't come from one place, by the way. So it's important for me to give you the whole picture so that.
By the way, when we're speaking, the graphic will be here of showing who funds you, and it's not
represents in the now and in the future.
No, thanks. You have painted a picture. You said a lot of English, man. So
good thing.
Nah,
not even.
Grand. So Modikasi, Grand, you traverse all townships of how.
I don't want to make a qualitative.
You spoke about other people's heroes may not be other people's heroes and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make it clear, she's not your hero.
No, she's just a South African who is contributing to a better outcome for this country. If we are residential solar, right? We know that it works because thousands of homes every single day are electrifying themselves on the basis of the crisis that we find ourselves in based on ESCOM. It's quite easy for a government to subsidize that sector and say, for eligible homes, we're going to make sure that there is subsidized solar.
Good morning, Tebza.
Good morning.
How is it?
Yeah, good.
Sure. Thanks. Please just tell the audience who are you and where you from.
Tebogo Moalusi is the name. I am the Gauteng provincial convener for Gauteng, Rise Mzansi. Kintwana Kokasi, grew up in Soweto, Johannesburg, but have had the pleasure of living in different places. I completed my matric in Johannesburg, Sacred Heart College, and attended University of Cape Town to do my undergrad in economics and law. Subsequent to that, worked in various sectors in corporate, from investment banking, management consulting, ICT, insurance. I've started and run some of my own businesses, so I'm currently an entrepreneur, creativepreneur. But outside of that, I'm a father of two, a husband, a patriot, someone who loves this country. I love long, boozy lunches with friends. I love traveling and exciting conversations, positive conversations that seek to drive impact and change.
You know one thing I've underlined? Another Soweto boy. No, you guys are dominating our social spaces. So where in Soweto are you from?
Mfolo Central.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's quite a CV, eh?
Well.
So you are Soweto born, yeah. and then you are what? Nice old man. Rana di grot man reke. O snob.
Snob?
Yeah.
Why?
Now I'm asking.
No, I think labels can be dangerous. You know. Well, I had the privilege of a great education, which is not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Nah, not even.
Grand. So, Modikasi, Grand, you traverse all townships of Gauteng, you understand the dynamics, or your language barriers are non-existent in Gauteng or Grand?
No, I think, as Aoteakoka, Soweto is a melting pot of many different cultures. And so, there are those which were dominant. Sizulu used to be kind of the English of Kasi.
Yes.
If you want to call it that. It's the universal language that we use to understand each other. But, I had the opportunity to also visit other townships, even here Kopeli. I've had the opportunity of hosting some events, Kola Ashma, and having interacted with Batuamo at Ridgeville and so on. So I'd like to believe that, when you grow up in Soweto, you're able to connect to different spaces. Having even gone to study in Cape Town, you go and ujana marako kailicha kwalanga, etc. So yeah, a traveling spirit, a free spirit.
So I was with my daughter in a relay somewhere in there, I think Melda's Drift. So so we're passing parking on the left, Deep Lord.
Sure.
Yes, she says, Papa, what's about Mr. Beast? Mr. Beast
Mr.
said
Beast, yeah.
he was in Soweto, the poorest township in South Africa. And I'm thinking, this guy has no idea. This guy has no idea. But that's why you are here, to give us more information about South Africa, not only Soweto.
Yeah.
Tell us, what is Rise Mzansi?
Rise Mzansi is a political alternative, a political party that will contest elections in 2024, 26 and 29 and beyond. But we're not just an election machinery and a political party. We are an alternative to the establishment. What does that mean? If you look at the number of people who are registered to vote, people who are eligible to vote, who have decided not to opt into politics, it's a larger proportion of people than those who have turned out at the polls. And when we did our research and we asked people, why do they decide not to vote? They said to us that when they look at the menu, they just don't feel and see something that speaks to them. And it is because of the parties that are present, but also the culture of politics that we've seen. If you watch TV, Parliament TV, the news on any given day, even just recently, what was happening in the sittings in Johannesburg, in Ekurhuleni, that's what people see. They see people throwing bottles at each other, throwing chairs at each other, swearing, and not realizing that people are hungry, people are looking for work, people are looking for safety, whilst they are busy politicking and behaving badly in spaces that should be defining the course of how things are supposed to happen. And so Rise Mzansi is responding to that, to say, as a political alternative, we want to present a new political culture that centers around people. And that's why we say Rise Mzansi is for the people, by the people, because we really need to go back to basics. And the basic element of democratic and constitutional democracy is that the people must govern, and the people should govern. And therefore, we must build a movement that is close to communities and close to people. So that's by and large who we are. But we're also a platform for change. We're a broad network of people who are interested in change. And therefore, beyond just political parties, we engage and connect with civil society, with communities, with business, with international organizations, because that's what formulates community. Community is not just a geographically placed idea. It is the concept of people convening and a network of people who have got a common purpose and an idea of the world. And that's what Rise Mzansi represents in the now and in the future.
No, thanks. You have painted a picture. You said a lot of English, man. So I want everyone who's watching to understand.
Yeah.
And I'm going to use a yardstick that's not common. So as a frame of reference, I just want to understand.
Sure.
And I want you to make it as easy and as light as possible for our audience.
Yeah.
So I want you to explain the leadership. I now understand what you guys are about. So you are for the people.
Yeah.
In terms of the leadership, Sengezoke Ramaphosa.
Songezoke Ramaphosa is what we call the national leader, or equivalent to a president of Rise Mzansi. Yeah.
So he leads the NEC.
He needs the NEC, in our case, NLC.
The NLC.
National Leadership Collective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes, you won't have the national working committees and stuff, I understand.
Yeah.
But bring it to the provinces as well, so people can relate.
Sure.
So you are the Gauteng convener, right?
Correct.
Panyaza Lisuf is the premier of Gauteng.
Yeah.
The chairperson of Gauteng is also the candidate.
Yes.
For premiership again.
Sure.
So you are the convener. Are you the chairperson, as it were?
Correct.
Yes. So politically you head the whole of Gauteng.
Correct.
And then in terms of government administrative maybe future, who's going to be the premier should you win the province?
It's a lady by the name of Vuiswa Ramokgopa,
Okay.
who is resident in Gauteng, but in the organization sits as the national chairperson.
The national chairperson.
Yeah.
Okay. Other provinces, do you want to explain? And those that you don't have presence, explain also to say who's then doing work for you there.
Sure.
We just want everyone who's sitting there to say, we get a lot of WhatsApp. Hey, I'm based in Soshanguve. Who's rights? Where are you?
Yeah.
I just want to give you an opportunity to paint this picture for everyone to understand. You can start from Limpopo going down to Western Cape if you want, but or whatever comes into your mind, just paint a picture for your audience.
Sure. So similarly, our organization has got provincial structures in all 9 provinces. We've got chairpersons, we call them conveners, and those conveners have got their own teams. So I, like I said, am the convener / chairperson of Gauteng. We've got conveners in Western Cape all the way up to Limpopo. I don't know if I should speak about all of them, but for example, we've got Atolile Nokyala in the Western Cape, resident in Kailicha, born from that province. And then we've got Nonkululego, who is in KZN, provincial convener, and many others, all the way through to like I said, Limpopo. Each one of the conveners has got other people that they work and support. So in my case, we've got what we call a provincial organizer. A provincial organizer in our structure is the same as a secretary general, if you want to call it that. So they are responsible for the organizing cluster within each province. They report into myself, or he reports into me. His name is Gary from Annandale. And then under Gary, we've got what we call metro leads, right? Metro leads are located in the metros of Gauteng. Right, so it's important that we have people and leaders as close to the regions and the spaces where we want to govern. So in Johannesburg, we've got 2 metro leads, because actually across all the big metros, we've got 2 metro leads. So in Gauteng, we've got, in city of Johannesburg, we've got a gentleman, Bambitso Nicholas, Osebetsale, another guy, Bambitsa Tsepo. For Tshwane, we've got Matome, who works with Michael. And then for Ekurhuleni, we've got Malusi, who works with Katlego. And then for the West Rand and Sidibeng, we've got team leaders that run those particular areas. Under each one of the metro leads, we've got what we call team leaders. Team leaders are responsible for field organizers. Field organizers are responsible for volunteers. And the way the model is built is that we want to be as close to communities as possible. We believe that the politics of the community is actually what matters the most. It's about when you step out Kontlung and ubona hore strata, metsi, safety, all of those things that affect your daily life are actually where the politics intersects with you personally. And so that's why we've got volunteers located in communities. We've got field organizers that manage those volunteers. We've got team leaders that manage those field organizers, and so it cascades up. So that's how each province is structured in terms of the top-down. And the idea is have as many people located in the communities rather than in a top structure. Otherwise, you spend a lot of time politicking and being theoretical about issues rather than dealing with the issues that the communities face on a daily basis.
Julius Malema says a political party is one of the most difficult things you could ever do. And you're a businessman. Business is a challenge. He says because doing all of those things that you spoke about, it's easy to explain a structure.
Yeah.
But to make it work, it's very difficult. So you need funding. You need cadres who are ready, because it's simple for people to raise their hands, but they may not even have capacity, and you may not have capacity to train them and stuff. How do you run this machinery? Gauteng is a monster.
Yeah.
It's a monster. And where did you get the training? Where did you get the background to do all of these things? And how often do you meet? We just want to understand the intricacies of your own political party.
Yeah. So our mandate always emanates from the National Leadership Collective. And the first important thing to understand about the importance of an executive team is their ability to articulate a strategy, a reason for being, the vision statement, right? That then cascades all the way further down. So that was the first thing that we had to settle on, is making sure that we've got a strong NLC or executive team. Insofar as I'm concerned, I sit on the NLC, so I sit on the executive, so I've got access to information, I've got access to the strategy, and I'm then responsible to make sure that that translates all the way down to our volunteers at a community level. So how we then run is the NLC sits on a weekly basis to articulate the strategy and the tactics of the organization. We then, as the conveners, must drive the tactical and operational deployment of that strategy. How it looks is, because I've got my Gauteng executive team, which I explained to you with Gary and the Metro Leads, etc., they then are responsible for the day-to-day activities of making sure that we reach our targets, both qualitatively and quantitatively. So the number of supporters that we are building, the type of relationships that we are building with communities and stakeholders, etc., etc. So that's really how we build the organization. From a resource point of view, we have a crowdsourcing model of how we function, from national all the way down to volunteers, because Ntwere Nahanang is that people want to contribute to the idea of politics, but the problem is, over the last 30 years, there's been this hurdle, this thing that says, wena, as Mang, you can't get into politics because you're not a card-carrying member, or you can't speak a certain way, or etc., etc. And so our model has been about making politics so accessible that people can contribute from wherever they are with whatever they have. And that's why a volunteer model versus a member model says that if you want to give us 2 hours of your time once a week, good shot. If you want to give us 5 hours every single day, fantastic. If you want to work with us on a full-time basis as a volunteer, even better. But we don't subscribe to people what they can or cannot do. Our philosophy is, as long as you're willing, capable, and passionate about this country, and you want to make a contribution through Rise Mzansi as a vehicle, you're more than welcome. We've got our parameters, which are our values, and our values are very simple, because values are important. Values define people's behavior when they are outside of a collective setting, right? So in our organization, our values, D5. Number 1 is freedom. Number 2, justice. Number 3, equality. Number 4, solidarity. Number 5, integrity. In every space that we occupy, that is what governs our behavior as individuals and as collectives. And so that is how we expect people to show up, and that's what we expect should govern how you show up as a Rise Mzansi representative. And lastly, before I hand over back to you, is the vision statement also determines our priorities, right? And our vision is clear. We say we want to build the South Africa we deserve, which is a safe, prosperous, equal, and united South Africa in one generation. That's as simple as it is. And the order of the words matter, the choice of the words matter, and the fact that we have given ourselves a time frame also matters, because I think Batubashi Bileng will tell you that they are sick and tired of waiting. Huneneng remetse misebetsi, huneneng remetse economic opportunity, huneneng we've been waiting for a united country that's not fractioned by the politics of identity. People want things to happen now. There are men and women in this country that were born into democracy and have never experienced the fruits of that democracy. And so when we say within a generation, which is, let's say 20 to 25 years, it means that a child born today, by the time they start working in 20 years, they must inherit a country that is fundamentally different to the one that we are living and working in. So that's how we operate.
Your positioning. Do you think you are hitting the target that you want? And I want you to be open.
Yeah.
Who's your target?
Our target is, let me put it to you this way. You can look at the data points at any point in time, and it will reflect to you who experiences the most amount of pain in this country. And so part of accelerating our efforts must be to identify who is most negatively affected and build systemic interventions to get them as close to the table as possible. So, who are those people? It's black people, right? It is women. It is the youth. It is people living with disabilities. It is those living on the fringes of economic activity. So, batho ba kasi and people living in rural spaces. It is children, because we think just because they don't vote, they don't get to participate in, the discourse, and we actually must build a proxy for them as well. Because if you look at human trafficking, if you look at crimes affecting children, you'll realize that children are significantly affected by crime in this country.
Do you have ambassadors, members, leaders of Mzansi embedded in communities? I'm asking because in the past political weekends where IEC would open up, I would struggle to see your presence in terms of warm bodies, but posters that I would see. And there's even someone who's accusing you that where do you get the money to post all over the country? The reason I was asking about the people you are targeting.
Yeah.
Where do you think you'll get more votes? Where do you think people who would like the way you guys are positioned, the way you guys are, the type of leaders that you have, what kind of people do you think you're going to resonate with? Because you keep talking about people, and in particular you speak about the township people.
Yeah.
Do you think you've got presence there?
Yeah, we do.
That's a highly contested
It's
terrain.
highly contested. I think people must realize that we are not even a year old. We announced ourselves on the 19th of April, 2023. So we haven't even celebrated our first birthday, and here we are. As an organization that's fully constituted across all 9 provinces. And by the way, we in the recent days issued a statement to say that we've reached our threshold. So you would know that the IEC requires a certain level of signatures of registered voters to be able to participate in provincial and national elections. As a new organization that's not even 1 year old, we've managed to even surpass that threshold. If I'm not incorrect, the threshold is about 65,000 signatures for national and provincials. We submitted 112,000 signatures. So when we talk about support, it's not like we're talking hypothetically. We know this qualitatively and quantitatively that there are warm bodies that will enable the success of Rise Mzansi. Secondly, the perception is that just because people don't see us on social media, we don't exist. Msebenzi wa rona is not to only win the battle in the air war where social media and media exist. We have to be on the ground. Elections are won when you go to door-to-doors and you do pamphlet drops and you go to taxi ranks, and that's what we've been doing.
That's what I'm saying.
Are we everywhere?
I'm not seeing you there.
Are we everywhere? Absolutely, we can't be. We just haven't been able to, be as big as some of the parties that are 112 years old. To be 112 years old is a significant outcome.
Yes.
And even the third political party on the list is more than a decade old. They are the same ones who are complaining about us. We're not even a year old. That should give you a sense of just how much of a threat we are. You can imagine, think of this as in human terms. A child that is not even a year old can't even speak. They can't feed themselves. They can't walk. A 10-year-old can feed themselves. They can talk. They've got agency. A 112-year-old should actually be in a grave somewhere.
Why are you subtweeting Malema and his...
I'm not subtweeting anybody. I'm just telling you what it is.
Yeah.
So, as a person who's 112 years old is likely in the grave.
Yeah.
So, by and large, we represent what the future should be. And yet we're already far ahead of our own development.
Yeah. But the 10-year-old says, we're now cheese boy. Those big families that capture everyone are giving you a lot of money.
Yeah.
And to me, it's more envy than anything, because when he started very early, and he was just born and he jumped into the national politics and he got big numbers, almost 1 million votes.
Yeah.
And yourselves, you are born, no one knows what you guys are about. Boom, already you've got millions in your account. Do you want to explain that to anyone who will doubt you? Who will doubt your independence, your free will?
First, I'd like to say that, you can't throw stones when you live in a glass house. I think you must go and look at the IEC declaration and ask yourself, the person shouting the most, where are they in that list? My recollection is they're not even on the list. And if I recall, IEC declaration are a legal requirement. So would you trust someone who supersedes and undercuts the rule of law, right? But still stands on the highest platform to shout and say, yeah, look at that guy. Show us yourself if you are that interested in leveling the playing field. But anyhow, we're not going to degenerate because we hold ourselves to a higher standard. We've declared, right? Because we cannot say that we want to prioritize the rule of law and transparency as a value, and then when we talk funding, we behave otherwise. So I think of all the parties, we've been the most consistent insofar as the values are concerned and how we are behaving.
Who are your blessers?
Our blessers are South Africans, people who are born of this country and are passionate about.
Who gives you money?
Yeah, Tlamo, let me explain to you. Doesn't come from one place, by the way. So it's important for me to give you the whole picture so that.
By the way, when we're speaking, the graphic will be here of showing who funds you, and it's not a secret. I just want you to say it.
No, it's fine. But remember, the graphic only represents the IEC's version of the world, which is anybody that gives more than 100,000, that's not the only people that give us. That's what I'm saying. There's hundreds and thousands of people that give us support over and above the ones that you will be able to see in the graphic. So at the base, you've got ordinary South Africans who debit order between 50 Rand all the way to, let's say, 2,000-3,000 Rand, young professionals on a debit order function that give us money monthly. We've got those who will give us donations, once-off donations, anything between 1,000 Rand and 99,000 Rand. You won't be able to see them because they're not on the list. Another reason why you won't be able to see them is in this country, unfortunately, we've got a culture of victimization. So we've got people in corporate, we've got people who have got their own businesses that are exposed to government business. And so if they're seen to be supporting Rise Mzansi, they immediately get victimized on the basis of making a democratic choice to support someone. So let's be mindful of that. It's not as simple as saying Tsepo from Kokaikai who works at a bank can just give us money, even if they can afford it. They can't, because immediately their name shows up on the graphic that you're going to show, and then people start asking out, Tsepo Monna, kante wetsalang? And they become victimized. They start losing commercial opportunities. Bakubiwa ko spanning, they become victimized and so on. So let's also understand the politics of funding. But let me come to your question, which is what most people are going to want to talk about, which is the big donations. Politics is expensive. Democracy is expensive. The complexity of politics makes it expensive. The T-shirts that you see, the posters, the people, all the logistics required to build a national footprint cost a lot of money. And so we have to look at high net worth individuals. They're called high net worth individuals because there's people that have got a lot of capital to be able to dispense into things like politics. And so in our list, you'll see people like Rebecca Oppenheimer is there. You've got Kairos, which is a company out of KZN. You've got in Josie, which is another one, and then there's a fourth one that the name of the company is kind of it's got 10 number, whatever. And those are people that looked at our proposition and looked at our manifesto and said, we like these politics. They represent our ambition for the country, and we want to support that. We have got rules and regulations around how we get our funding. And one of those is that we must always maintain policy and political independence. We are astute professionals and business people. We understand the impact of funding on influence, and therefore that's one of the things and the guardrails we put as part of our funding constitution to make sure that anybody who approaches us with the desire to support, that they understand the rules of the game. What that list, the thing that you'll put up, does not show you are the people that we've said no to. And as an organization as young as ours, we need all the support we can get. But because of our values and because of those funding parameters that I've described, we've had to look at certain people and say, look, just based on the fact that, number one, you may want to influence us or you've got certain expectations that don't align with ours, let's not go any further. We'll go where there is an alignment of expectation, which includes that people that support us don't want to interfere in our politics.
Are you free to disclose those you rejected?
No.
If someone smuggles cigarettes and wants to give you money, or is alleged to have smuggled cigarettes, would you take that money?
No.
If someone...
Unlike others. But please continue.
Yeah, so if someone is alleged to come from a family that has captured the republic from since time immemorial, was to give you money, would you accept the money?
Define captured.
Captured would be your Oppenheimers, your Minel families, your Ruperts and the likes. They are rumored to be controlling South Africa's financial trajectory and, in essence, the economy. And people don't like them much because the monopoly they hold, and they are called names. And people have, without proof, of course, they have labeled them enemies of the people. Do you see them in that light, or you genuinely see them as funders?
You know, we must be careful of how we want to label and bunch people based on perception. I don't think that one can sit and have a universal understanding of morality in the way that you describe it. One person's hero is another person's villain. Even the concept of capture, I would have asked you, does Patrice Motsepe sit under that description?
Are you asking me?
Yeah. Because you said influential family, they do work with the state, etc., etc. Does he fall into that category of people?
He falls into a category of beneficiaries of those family together with Cyril Ramaphosa.
Oh, so he can't be seen as a person who...
He's a beneficiary, meaning that he himself is under those families.
Okay. Yeah. So you don't see him as an independent owner of capital?
No. I see him as a... No, that's not me seeing him.
Yes.
That's what the narrative.
Okay.
The narrative draws him as one of those who are projected to be beneficiaries, but are controlled with a PS station at the back, a controller.
So it's that question of perception.
Yeah, of course.
We are...
Of course, and I think with your rejection of money that comes with intention that you don't like, it's also perception based.
Yeah. We are very clear. If someone comes to the table and says, we want you to think about this policy idea or this positioning based on the fact that we support you, we say no to that money. So, and that's that.
Did Rebecca give you any positioning?
No.
Okay,
she is a South African who believes in the proposition of Rise Mzansi, in the leadership and the credibility of the leaders. Did you
question why she gives you money?
Of course, yes.
Okay.
And that's what she said.
Okay. The other one that you rejected, maybe one or two, they told you what they stand for, and then you said, if you stand for this, we don't want.
Exactly.
You spoke about heroes. Is she a hero?
Is who a hero?
Rebecca.
I don't know. Okay, I don't want to make a qualitative.
You spoke about other people's heroes may not be other people's heroes and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make it clear, she's not your hero.
No, she's just a South African who is contributing to a better outcome for this country. If we are Rise Mzansi and we want to make the country better, and someone supports us, that should say something about them. I'm not the one who must make that judgment. People must make their own judgments. We are all adults that must look at the facts before us, and we must all decide, who is who.
The 100,000 cap, is it a hindrance? You think you could gather more money if it wasn't there? Do you like it? Because it doesn't took many years to make sure this policy comes into place, so people could declare, because the democracy also demands transparency, because people fear such thing that you spoke about. So Nomvula Mokonyane a few years ago said they spent $1 billion in the election campaign, and that is a ruling party.
Yeah.
And you guys are contesting, and I don't know how much you've got in your purse. Do you think you'll ever be financially ready? And that cap also of 100,000, can you also answer it while you answer this one of financial readiness?
I think we need to start moving to a mature democracy where transparency becomes the course of the day. And in an ideal world, there shouldn't be thresholds. We should be able to allow anybody to be able to contribute and not have to face any victimization for that. And so I think my view is that that threshold, should be opened up so that everybody who contributes is known. Because what happens is, because of the point that I've made about people being victimized, is that you're not able to actually access the full value of someone who wants to support you because they are fearful. But if we removed the fear and leveled the playing field from a transparency point of view, everybody is then faced with the same dynamics insofar as being able to contribute. Transparency should be something that we all subscribe to across all parties. And then there must be the idea that there is consequence for lack of transparency. It cannot be that year in, year out, election after election, there are political parties that are under-declaring and there's no consequence. It's just, for me, it's problematic.
I understand, and I want to get back to that. So I want it to be clear. You don't want people to be forced to declare. Is that what you're saying? I'm talking about the 100,000 cap. Do you want it, or are you saying they must not force people to declare? Or are you saying everyone should declare, even from 1,000 rands?
I think everybody should be able to declare, and that should be a level playing field for all political
Forced to
parties.
declare?
Not forced to. It should be based on their desire to be known to be a political contributor.
So Mzansi happily declares?
Yes, yeah.
You are not declaring because there's a policy from IEC. You are forced to declare. You are not declaring because of that.
No, we declare because we believe that people knowing how we are funded is important. That's why our statement came out before the IEC declaration came out. We issued our statement independent of that process because we wanted South Africans to know how we operate.
This seems to bother you, and I can tell because for the past few weeks people have been bullying you about this. Does it bother you that the EFF and other political parties did not declare, and what must happen to them according to you?
It doesn't bother me. I think South Africa has laws, and those laws matter. And we should all care about those laws because they protect us. They are a reflection of the consolidated views of South African people. And so I'm not going to make value judgments on other political parties. They have got their own reasons why they do things. Insofar as we're concerned, we declared because we believe it's the right thing to do. We believe that transparency is an important value, but we also believe that the rule of law is something that should govern everybody equally. It cannot be that we're now Fitler at a red light, you just drive through, and then I must stop and observe the rules of the road. The rule of law is about governing a society for prosperity.
Do you want to suggest punitive measures?
No, I'm sure they are there and available. And we as all South Africans should ask ourselves if they are adequately applied.
If you were to police this contravention, what would you impose? What penalties would you impose to those who deliberately, by the way, ignore declaring?
That would be an overreach for me to make a contribution.
No, if you were the designated policeman, if you were the sheriff.
No, I mean, that's like me asking you, if this particular crime was to take place, what kind of punishment? That must be, there are legal practitioners who are
right,
given the space to operate.
Out from that one.
No,
let's talk about.
Let's leave the experts to handle. Part of the problem we are in, Nabuti, is the fact that we have given people power to be experts in places and spaces that they know nothing about.
That's why I qualified it by saying if you were the sheriff and you hold a gun, you need to shoot. and based on what would you want. But because it's a frame of reference, let's leave it.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the people.
Yes.
What specific problem in the township or in just civil society that you think the ANC, because that's the ruling party and you want change, is messing up, and it's very easy to solve, and you can solve it because you already have a toolbox ready for that?
Jobs.
How?
So the first step is we must realize that there are some man-made circumstances that put us where we are. Choices and decisions that the ruling party made about state-owned enterprises is one of them. And there's two very important ones: Eskom, Transnet. You cannot run an effective and efficient economy that creates jobs when your power utility performs as the way it is right now. Just recently, there was a risk statement mentioning that we might have to go to stage 13 as a function of megawatts dropping out of one of the big power stations. Now, you can imagine the level of embarrassment we should have that today in 2024 that's even possible. So if you don't fix Eskom, you can't fix jobs. That's the first thing. So fix Eskom and make sure that our power utility is able to offer cheap, sustainable, and uninterrupted power. The second one is logistics matter. We are a net exporter of minerals and resources in this country, but we also have to import certain aspects in order to put them into our productive capacity and our productive processes. If you are not able to effectively do that, you have an economy that will underperform. Just fixing those very two key state-owned enterprises would fundamentally shift this country's ability to generate work at all levels of the economy.
So I would play devil's advocate and say, for your constituency, that would be too abstract to make sense of.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example. So Panyaza just went to the streets and told people to come to a stadium.
Yeah.
Julius accused him of grandstanding and stuff, but what he practically did is he gave people contract, he took people from the streets, from the CPFs, he trained them, he put green suits on them. Julius called them green beans because they will always criticize when a man is working.
Sure.
But all I'm saying is he made something realistic, and those people are working as we speak. That's why I want you to sell your idea that you have, because if you say it in an abstract way, that will be obvious. What is it that you can bridge a gap on? Let me give an example.
Yeah.
I saw you speaking very passionately about the medical professionals.
Yes.
In that space, what is it that you could do? For example, you could say, I'll resuscitate the nursing colleges, maybe I will standardize them, I will do this. I want you to say something that they would understand. Because to me, it's just the same as what Mabini has been saying while he was a DA, what Makashulu was saying while he was blah, blah, blah. So I just want you, something that stands out as a solution from Rise Mzansi.
Okay, so I got three. Number one, we have got a growing new industry called residential solar. Right? We know that it works because thousands of homes every single day are electrifying themselves on the basis of the crisis that we find ourselves in based on Eskom. It's quite easy for a government to subsidize that sector and say, for eligible homes, we're going to make sure that there is subsidized solar installations in those homes so that we can get them off the grid and make sure that the grid supports high power consuming industries, for example.
Tell us more about that.
About what?
About the solar?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to explain. So we've got an entity in South Africa that provides digital content. I'm not going to give the name because, it's a corporate and so on. But their dishes are all over the township, right? When they started, that was a centralized function. They owned the ability to actually install those elements in any particular home. They then decentralized that and empowered small businesses to be trained up. They gave them a van, they gave them training, and they said, go out into communities and install these far and wide. And to date, you can see them in flats, you see them in informal settlements. They are there. And they are there because there is a model that enabled them to do so. And that model is funded. People make money out of it. Not only is it an installation organization, but there's also troubleshooting and there's management and cross and upselling and so forth. So what I'm saying is there is an existing model that shows you how you take a massive project and you chop it up into pieces and you make sure that a 2-3 man business is able to start and run efficiently and effectively and actually feed people.
Okay.
Right?
I don't want to get lost. So you're saying a typical example like that, government can chip in, help fund it, or
yes,
or what is subsidize it. So
yes,
when it does that, it will inevitably create more jobs.
Absolutely.
And sustain. Okay, no thanks. I understand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you have a driver's license, you're able to get access to a van or a vehicle.
True.
You should be able to put solar on people's roofs and make sure that they get power at times when there's load shedding. And even when there's load shedding, they should be able to access the biggest resource we have, which is the sun, in order to power their homes.
True.
Right. So that's a simple business that you can build up. And you can build it in such a way that from the onset, it's already transformed. But because this government has been sleeping, what's happened is even from the onset, it's already becoming a situation of the guys with the big money and the big capital are the ones that are going to own that industry, which was non-existent 2 years ago.
Right.
So that's number one.
Okay.
The second one is, again, to a government failure: water. We know that there's water issues all over the place. You can read any report that tells you that failing infrastructure from a water point of view is a problem and a crisis that's going to make electricity look like a walk in the park. Why don't we find ways to make sure that all the taps, all the last mile pipes, all the broken pipes that are in the roads are being serviced and fixed by plumbing companies that are owned by Batubako Kasi, that are black owned, that are women owned, etc., etc. Because we know we've got a looming infrastructure crisis.
Sorry to rush you. Get to the third one because we're closing.
Creative industry.
Okay.
Recently we won Emmy Awards, Grammy Awards. We know that creativity is our superpower.
Yes.
But what we've done is we've relegated the creative industry as a dumping site for ministers who are under scrutiny or who have failed to deliver in other ministries. And that's what we get, right? And so there's no strategic thinking about how do we make the creative industry an ultra-absorptive space for semi-skilled people. But what Bayamvetu can operate in that sector, but it needs to be formalized, it needs to be capitalized, and people need to be brought closer to access to market, especially export. Amapiano, Bona, what Amapiano has done. How many jobs has Amapiano created through the cycle? From bouncers to club owners to DJs, etc., etc. Those are just three that were tabled, and those are in our manifesto, by the way. So those are practical examples that could be switched on tomorrow.
Yeah.
But when you don't have a leadership that is passionate, has got ideas, that is fresh, that is responsive to the nature of politics of the day, they're not responsive. These people are pensioners, guys. They don't see the world in the way that it exists. And for as long as we don't bring in new leaders who have got new ideas, we're going to be stuck with the same people that operate in the South Africa of 30 years ago. We have to be ready for young people to take their rightful place at the table. In every other industry, young people are represented and are literally taking decisions that shape organizations and sectors. But in the political sector, for some reason, we have this idea that all generations must run a new dispensation. It just doesn't make sense.
All right, I'm going to give you a last question, and then you'll also wrap up. So when you wrap up, you just say anything that you think your political party wants your constituencies to know. So the last question is, 2024, Julius Malema will be going to his third conference as a political party where they exercise their own democracy.
Yeah.
Gayton McKenzie doesn't believe in doing those things.
Sure.
Because they just look at potential. You go there, you go and hit Gauteng. When you go and hit Limpopo, when you go, they don't do those things because they say it's popularism.
Sure.
You end up getting the most popular guy, but not the best guy. What is your democratic practices that you push inside? I'm basing it on the names like convener and stuff. Are they temporary? Are you going to go to conference to cement all of those things? In short, just answer that, and then I'm going to leave you to close.
We subscribe to democracy, constitutional democracy, and therefore we would definitely want to subject the organization to democratic processes. At the same time, we've had to get the organization to a certain point. And to get here, we had to build the organization. So we are an interim structure until we have our conference. We haven't decided at which stage that's going to happen, but certainly we can't say we subscribe to democratic and constitutionalism and not, make sure that the people decide how Rise Mzansi then, builds itself going forward. So that's essentially our position. So yeah, I hope that answers your question insofar as where and how we want to do things. Every startup has to start somewhere, whether it is a political organization or a podcast. You can't, start with a conference. But at a certain point, you want to normalize where you balance the ability to build a sustainable organization that can continue to contest the space, but with the ideals of that organization, which is constitutionalism and democracy. So that's where we stand on that particular issue.
Oh, thank you very much. Just close for us for your
yeah.
Talk to them directly.
Okay, thank you very much for tuning in. What an exciting opportunity we have in 2024. We're about 89 days to the elections, and that window of opportunity is going to close very quickly. It means that the next time we get to do this is in 2029. And if you just look at the conditions of the country, you know that we are in deep crisis, and this can only continue with the current dispensation and the political actors at the helm. So we are asking you to take charge, rise with Mzansi, rise for Mzansi, and make sure that 2024 is our 1994. We need new leaders. And the reason we say we need new leaders, this current crop of leaders has gotten us to the crisis we're in. Despite what they say, they will not be able to get us out. And so you and I, ordinary South Africans who want to do extraordinary things, finally have a vehicle that can deliver that. So I'm saying activate yourself, take control of your life, stop suspending your agency and giving it to these thugs, these uncaring, corrupt political officials, and give yourself the power to step into the realm and be represented by quality, caring, competent leaders like you and myself. But we can't do it without the vote, and the vote is not enough. Let's go into our communities, do the work, be active, and see politics as a way of life and not something that is kept for a few people on the side. We need new leaders. New leaders will bring new ideas, and we are the ones we've been waiting for. So be a part of history, because at this moment we're going to change the course of history. South Africa will never be the same again, but it cannot happen without you making sure that you come to the fore and take your rightful position in making sure that we get the country we deserve, a safe, prosperous, equal, and united South Africa where people can live with happiness and well-being.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ola.